freshman English teacher, so you get extra accolades just for that. I turned out okay, right? You did a good job. Yeah. Her classroom is a warm haven filled with books and squishmallows where students feel safe to explore ideas. Kristen's passion for literature is contagious, evident in her creative activities and student connections. Her impact extends beyond the classroom as she supports students at events and champions mental health initiatives. Kristen is a role model for all, inspiring students and educators with her dedication, compassion, and belief in education's power to change lives. Kristen, the board wants to thank you for all that you've done to support our mission of excellence for all.
Thank you. And Ms. Kruger, I believe you have our next award recipient.
Yes, would Jenny Taylor from Bear Park Elementary please step forward? Hello. Jenny Taylor is the recipient of the Rolfs Foundation Award at the elementary school level. Since joining our district in 2005, Jenny has served as a kindergartner, first grade, third grade, and fourth grade teacher at Bear Park Elementary. Jenny ignites a passion for learning and creates a haven for young learners in her classroom. Her calm demeanor and authentic nature put students at ease. A champion for all, Jenny goes the extra mile, readily taking on challenges to support students and colleagues. Her expertise enriches any grade level, and her willingness to collaborate makes her a valuable team member. Jenny's positive impact extends beyond the classroom. She promotes positive behavior through her many years of leadership on the school's PBIS team and spreads joy as part of the Sunshine Committee. Jenny is a true force of positivity who brightens Fair Park Elementary. Jenny, the school board thanks you for your commitment to excellence in education for all students.
All right, we're going to shift gears here ever so slightly. The board also wishes to recognize this year's recipients of the Support Employee of the Year Award. These recipients are all valued members of our support staff. And like the Rolfs Award winners, these individuals were nominated by their peers and were selected as winners of this year's awards by the recipient of the award from the previous year. So, to start off our celebration of Support Staff Award winners, we're going to ask Kelly Lang to introduce our next winner.
Yes, would Monica Weinberger step forward? Monica is from Silverbrook Intermediate School. Monica is a sign language interpreter at Silverbrook, but in reality, she is much more than that. She's a communication bridge and an advocate for all. Since joining the team in 2017, her dedication has extended well beyond her assigned students. She fosters a culture of inclusion for all children through constant innovation and a commitment to lifelong learning. Monica not only sharpens her skills, but shares them with colleagues, inspiring future interpreters. Her impact extends beyond the classroom, too. She played a key role in the development of the district's Deaf Awareness Program. Always willing to lend a hand and go the extra mile, Monica is a genuine inspiration to her team. Monica, the school board thanks you for all you do every day.
Chad, I believe you have the next award recipient.
Yes. Would Marietta Bailey please step forward? Marietta Bailey is more than just the library paraprofessional at the high school. Since 1996, she's championed education, transforming the library into a vibrant hub for learning. Her dedication goes far beyond just books. She actively seeks knowledge to elevate curriculum and standards so that her impact extends beyond the confines of the library. Marietta's passion inspires those around her. The library, under her leadership, bursts with resources, fostering collaboration and exploration. It is a testament to her commitment to student growth. A beacon of kindness, Marietta guides students, she mentors colleagues, and connects with the community. Her service, reliability, and helpful spirit make her an inspiration to countless individuals in the high school. Marietta, the school board, would like to thank you for helping with the continued success of our district.
And Melanie, you have our next award recipient.
I do. Would Cassandra Thorson from Silverbrook Intermediate School please step forward? Cassandra joined Silverbrook in August of 2021 as a special education paraprofessional. Her deep love for Silverbrook radiates daily through her actions, words, and smile, showing up each day, ready to pour in 110% effort. Cassandra's positive spirit and outstanding work ethic inspire all around her. She is truly one of the heartbeats of the Silverbrook school community. Her commitment to students and colleagues shine through every interaction she has. Cassandra champions each student tirelessly, supporting academic and social and emotional growth. Her care even extends beyond the classroom, ensuring consistency, stability, and that no child goes hungry. Cassandra embodies Silverbrook's spirit, making everyone feel truly valued and appreciated. Cassandra, the school board wishes to share its gratitude to you for everything you have done for our students and staff.
Well, thank you to all of our award recipients. Thank you so much for coming and spending your early evening here with us. These words, these accolades, this high praise came from your colleagues, but just want you to know, of course, that our board shares their admiration for you and everything that you do every day for our district. We thank you most sincerely, and I ask those in the audience to join me again. One more round of applause as we thank you for your service. Thank you so much. And with that, we're going to continue on, but you are, of course, free to stay for our school board meeting. But if you also wish to depart, we understand you may have a busy evening, so we'll let you settle there for a moment. All right. Why don't we get started, or we'll prepare for our next recognition item then, which is recognition of the National Speech and Debate Association, Southern Wisconsin District Assistant Coach of the Year. And I think, is Molly Hengst here to kick this off for us? Good evening, Molly.
Hello, thanks for having me. I am here for a couple of special recognitions out of our co-curricular groups. So I'm going to start with David Wyatt, if David could come up. And I'm also going to ask John Konetzker, who's the East and West Debate Advisor. David Wyatt has had a career in coaching speech that has spanned over 20 years. He has previously coached at Nicolet High School and Cedarburg High School before joining the West Bend program. He has dedicated himself to his forensic students at every possible turn, running practices, traveling to and judging at tournaments, aiding both East and West at their respective tournaments, and making himself available to students at all hours. David is always there for students, makes forensics fun, and his wealth of knowledge makes him a tremendous resource for our students and our school. Receiving the honor of Assistant Coach of the Year from the Southern Wisconsin District of the National Speech and Debate Association speaks volumes to what David means to East and West forensics. Congratulations, David.
Thank you, and congratulations. We have another recognition.
Yes, out of the same.
Yes.
If I could call Linda Granick up. Linda Granick came to the West Bend High School's debate and forensics team nearly 10 years ago when her eldest daughter and now assistant debate coach Rachel joined the debate team. She readily volunteered her time to help prepare and sell concessions and lunch items. She truly went above and beyond for the team by also coordinating parent volunteers, going along to shop for needed items, doing all she can to help keep costs down for both the teams and the students she serves. She also helps the coaches immensely by cutting down on the time needed to get a tournament up and running, and their tournaments are very large and very long. She is the ultimate volunteer and team mom, being honored as Volunteer of the Year by the Southern Wisconsin District of the NSDA is well-deserved and long overdue for Linda. Congratulations, Linda.
Thank you to both of you for your efforts and for promoting speech. And of course, the board recognizes the success of that program. And thank you again very, very much for all you do for the program. All right. We move then to our next agenda item, which is public participation. I do not have any public participation comment cards. I'm just scanning the audience. I don't see any there. So we're going to continue on then with our consent agenda. On our consent agenda, we have minutes of the May 6, 2024 regular board meeting and executive session. We have 2 contracts. There is 1 resignation, no retirements. Also, the pupil non-discrimination report and revenues and expenditures in the aggregate through April 30th, 2024. I believe that's all the contents of the consent agenda. I move to approve this consent agenda. Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. We have a motion and second to approve the consent agenda. Any final discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? Thank you. The motion carries. We move now to reports. We have 1 report under that section of the agenda, and that is Superintendent Jen Wimmer's report. Superintendent Wimmer.
Sure. Just a reminder to our community, we have a survey open around facilities. So recall we did multiple engagement efforts in February and April, and hopefully that will culminate with a widespread survey of our community. So a postcard got mailed to your home. So if you haven't seen it, you can contact us here at the district office. We can help you get access to that. The survey is open for about 1 more week, so encourage everyone who's hearing this, your neighbors, to participate in that survey. The feedback that we will receive is integral in understanding communities' needs as we frame kind of long-term facilities planning. So again, if anyone would like a paper version, had trouble accessing, just give us a call here. We'll walk you through, but we would encourage everyone to participate in that survey. During our last meeting, the Columns and Local Foundations event was going on, and our students were receiving scholarships. So 145 seniors from East and West earned local scholarships for their post-secondary education. In total, $900,000 was provided in local scholarships for 4-year, 2-year colleges, universities, and technical schools. So our thanks and gratitude goes to the Columns organization for its many scholarships, the generous foundations that also work with them, the individuals, families, organizations in our community who contribute to these scholarships every year. While $900,000 is a very impressive amount, it doesn't include the additional academic or scholarships that our students are earning from their chosen school or program. For example, East Senior Mackenzie Delaney was one of only 10% of recipients of an Army ROTC scholarship to get for a full tuition for all 4 years. So we congratulate Mackenzie as she'll be part of the Army ROTC while attending Central Florida University. So congratulations to those 145 students as well as the others earning scholarships and recognitions. Wanted to highlight the new Story Walk. So Green Tree Elementary opened its brand new Story Walk last week, and it was a big event for families. The Story Walk is around the building and was developed through lots of hard work by the ABC Parent Group, the Green Tree staff, and our high school manufacturing students. If you haven't seen the pictures of the 8-year-olds going over to the high school with little welding helmets on, watching the big kids make this for them, please go visit our website. It's adorable. So all of these people work together with the community. And again, you're welcome off school hours to walk through and take in a story. The stories will be rotated so the kids can take advantage during those school hours. And again, our community can take advantage during non-school hours of that story walk. But a really great collaboration with our elementary and high school students. Reminder of the art shows. Our district art show is at the Hub through May 31st. So I've already gone to their opening night and seen that, so it's a real treat. So I would encourage you to take that in before the show's taken down May 31st. And also this week, Thursday, is the opening reception for the Advanced Placement Art and Design Show from 4 to 7 p.m. in the West Bend High School Silver Lining Gallery. And on Friday morning, our seniors will enjoy their grad walk, which is another fun experience for our graduates and younger students. So I'd encourage you to take in the art, take in the accomplishments as we celebrate end-of-the-year events. Also, speaking of end-of-year events, all the high school spring athletics are moving into regionals, sectionals, and playoffs. So make sure to check those schedules on the East and West Athletics websites and social media to see where and when baseball, softball, track and field, boys tennis, golf, girls soccer are competing. I know we were supposed to have track regionals tonight. I'm not sure with the rain, so it's been a very wet spring. So stay posted to those websites to know where and when to cheer on your favorite teams. That's all I had.
Thank you. Any questions for Superintendent Wimmer? All right, thank you for your report. We move to our discussion items, and we have a number of out-of-state travel requests. Let's begin with the first one, which is out-of-state travel for Skills USA Nationals. And I see Molly coming to the podium again. Thank you.
I'm actually going to call all my advisors up because
Perfect.
I have 3 here tonight. One was not able to come because we're busy. John, are you coming up? Okay, so Mike Bentall for Skills USA. Theirs is their national tournament. They're headed to Atlanta, Georgia. This is Natasha Ablanil. She's FCCLA advisor. Again, this is our first trip for FCCLA. This is their first year of competing, and she has 2 students who qualified for the national tournament in Seattle, Washington. John Konexker, you've already approved a trip for them, but they are also going to nationals for forensics debate in Des Moines, Iowa. And then Allie Holzer, who is my advisor for FBLA, she was not able to attend this evening. They also qualified for nationals, 1 student there in Orlando, Florida. So I have them here in case there are any questions for you.
Go ahead, Superintendent Wimmer. I saw you reaching for your microphone.
No, just in our practice, just to reiterate, we've been approving out-of-state trips and those pieces. We will try and streamline this in the future because I know that you're coming in season and you're doing all that, and I'm sure you're preparing other things. So we've worked as a team, Dr. Trueblood and I, to kind of streamline this in the process while giving our students their due recognition for qualifying for national level competitions. So all the trips before you have been vetted, you see that paperwork, it gets signed off by Molly, the principal, ourselves at central office, so that they're vetted in accordance with your expectations. And again, we couldn't be more proud of our students when they present themselves on a national platform and represent West Bend. So again, certainly every advisor's here for any questions regarding those trips, but they're very standard to what has come before the board in the past.
Great. So this is a discussion item, so we'll do the approvals at the next meeting. But in the meantime, as I look through the paperwork, and I'm not sure if this is best directed to our guests at the podium or Superintendent Wimmer to you, but these looked like kind of par for the course trips, nothing unusual.
And remind me, I mean, we've had national competitions. Natasha, this is the first year for your group competing at that level and earning national kind of recognition, but certainly our students have competed at high levels before in the other programs, so.
Any questions? Mr. Jenkins.
Just out of curiosity, because it's new to me, can you share a little bit about FCCLA? What does a nationals competition of that even look like?
Well, FCCLA stands for the Future Career Community Leaders of America. The girls that I'm taking with me, one is competing in fashion construction. So she had to design a line of clothes, and then she had to make one of those outfits, and she presents it. And then my other one is going for job interview. So she had to apply for a job, do the resume, do her cover letter, and all the things that go with it. And that's what she will compete in the competition.
Well,
Yeah.
I really hope she gets that job.
I know, right?
Cool, thank you.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Other questions? All right, well, we thank you for coming tonight. So we'll see this on the agenda then, next meeting. Fantastic. Appreciate all of your efforts in helping these students succeed in these endeavors. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, our next discussion item then is the 2024-2025 preliminary budget. So we invite forward Mr. Andy Sarno, our Assistant Superintendent of Business and Operations, to present. He's on his way forward. Good evening, Mr. Sarno.
Good evening. I appreciate the opportunity to get in front of you again. We're well into budget season. We'll share just a little bit of information tonight, have a brief presentation, and then I have that commonly viewed, and I hope you'll recognize the format of the document. But just briefly, looking at a preliminary budget approval, discussion this evening, tentative approval on June 3rd at the next meeting, 2 weeks from now. Happy to bring any discussion this evening into what would be presented for you for consideration at that point in time. But just some of the brief, and I have it linked up on top with the full budget calendar, just some of the brief highlights is that we have estimated variances from last year, technically this year to next year in December, start working on what what's changing. March, bring forward information, which we did. We're now at the May or the June area, and it can kind of flip back and forth just a little bit, but have that discussion and approval. Two purposes behind that. The first one is full transparency with the community, sharing information, making sure not just you guys and our staff, but all stakeholders know that we're bringing forward balanced budgets, what's included in that, those types of things. The second piece, and this is based on a little bit more formal interpretation of the Department of Public Instruction language, but even having a preliminary budget approved, so that way we can begin incurring expenditures, even though we don't have our September annual meeting for the stakeholders, the voting members, as well as the final budget in October. We have a preliminary budget to go off of, so people feel comfortable paying people, buying things, rather than facilities and technology when they come forward in January, asking for that ahead of time. This allows for that to begin for everybody else. I do have 2 asterisks here in September as well as October, pending your meeting dates. So those are tentative at this point in time with that annual meeting and setting the final budget levy and mill rate that come up after we receive final information from the Department of Revenue and the Department of Public Instruction. I'd be here a year from right now with a amendment, which I will be in front of you for the current year at the next couple of meetings, as well as the audit process and those things that begin. So we really do look at about a 2-year window by the time we start the budget process, have our fiscal year, and then the ending and the wrap up of all of that. So just some key points, some important pieces that I'll share more detail in the other attached document. We have a balanced general fund budget that's in front of you. You will see a deficit because we are purposefully spending fund balance in a couple key areas, but the general fund is balanced at this point in time. We do have to spend the rest of our ESSER $3 by September 30th of 2024. We're utilizing those dollars, the remainder of those, to balance the budget, which it's fairly sizable. It will be dependent on how we end the current fiscal year, what's available. But the best estimation at this point in time is that those dollars are going to be available to balance the budget. That September 30th date's a little bit tricky because we've just started the fiscal year. But we're going to make sure that we utilize those dollars from that ESSER 3 survey that we had, 2 years ago, reading, math, those key areas of focus for our student learning.
So if I can just follow up on that just really quickly, because you talked about spending it, it's required to be spent, and technically it's a budgetary deficit. I think the idea there is we're taking in 0 new ESSER dollars, correct?
Yep.
But by the terms of this grant, we have to spend what we have. So 0 in, spending what we have, that technically is reflected as a deficit. Is that correct?
Correct.
That's part of what we're talking about here. I know this is,
Yep.
it's confusing to say, it's balanced, but we have a deficit. But that's really one of the factors,
Yeah,
correct?
if those dollars were not available, we would in fact have a deficit. So we're utilizing those. I was just talking to a district last week that were utilizing them in a different way. So depending on how districts used the dollars initially, how much money they originally received, because it was based on free and reduced and when we returned to school and several different variables, but we'll be utilizing the balance of those for this next year. Yeah. Great clarification. Thank you, sir. We have no more debt. We're not levying any dollars for debt repayment, both non-referendum as well as referendum. So everything is satisfied with levying dollars from the 2009-2012 approved referendums. At this point in time, final bullet that I have, and it's going to be relatively close, an anticipated mill rate of $5.20. It will be close to that. We're still waiting for some information. Even the operational referendums that were approved across the state last month, those will impact both positive as well as negative, depending on how they're funded. That could impact us, and it will. Even the large Milwaukee $250 million, that's going to impact us up to a couple pennies potentially on how the whole funding process goes. So we're going to be close, but it's way too preliminary to make an actual estimate based on property values, the final state aid that we're going to be receiving, and some of those other impacting variables. What typically happens between May and October? So we continue to monitor enrollment, make sure that we align our staffing with those needs. At this point in time, we have salaries and benefits are estimated, but we will be updating and finalizing those numbers appropriately. Additionally, there's still a lot of learning. Our teachers are learning, our teachers developing curriculum. There's a lot of that going on over the summer. It's not just updating our facilities, deploying curriculum, but we have a lot going on in our district throughout the summer. And the last piece, and I always say this as politely as I can, is we just need a little bit of patience because we don't even receive our final property values until October 15th, our final state aid from the Department of Public Instruction on that same day per statute. So we will continue to bring forward information. When we know it, we'll continue to have dialogue at appropriate times, and we do have some of those built into the calendar. But just a little bit of patience, we'll stay connected. So going, again, discussion only at this point in time. Happy to have some additional discussion, questions, but it would be anticipated that we'd be bringing this forward for approval on June 3rd, 2 weeks from now.
Board members, any questions for Mr. Sarno? As you mentioned, I hate to even bear repeating that this is, like you said, a discussion item only tonight, and first meeting in June 3, I think it is,
Yep.
slated for action. But I think you had another remark. I think I just cut you off. I'm sorry.
No. I do have, just really briefly, and this is the meat of the document. That was a brief presentation to let everybody know kind of summary information. Again, same format. When I take a look at the all funds together, we're a little over $100 million company. Now, this is adding up the funds. We do transfer money from one fund to another in some different areas. So when I take out those duplicated expenditures, but really focusing on that proposed preliminary budget, and with the purple on the far right-hand side, we do have the original budget at this point in time for the current 2023-24 fiscal year. It was a balanced budget at that point in time. Again, proposing a balanced budget looking ahead, but you'll notice a $5.7 million deficit that's projected for next year, primarily around the referendum debt repayment. We'll utilize fund balance for that, short fund balance that we have in our Fund 50, where we're utilizing some of those dollars for investments into the program, other areas. But general fund, revenues in the green, expenditures in the kind of tannish area. I have notes that are there for guiding principles. Some of the key pieces by fund that I have bracketed. General fund balanced, captured our staffing at this point in time, estimated benefits as we're still working with our benefit consultants on final numbers. I've utilized the Baird forecast model for this, which we've incorporated all of the discussions up through now to reflect those dollar amounts. I apologize, I was in Excel and I don't know how to skip a page, so I had to just say page left blank intentionally, so I apologize for that. Fund 21 is our student gift fund. This is everything that's generated at all of our schools through students' estimates at this point in time. Fund 27 is our special education. It's driven by the students' individualized education plans, so all those services and programs that has to balance, and we transfer in a sizable amount. This year, right now, it's slated in the current year at $9.8 million. Small decrease next year, and that's reflective of the transfer that's needed to balance them out. Bottom of the page, Fund 29, which is Head Start. That's a federal program that we have for some of our littlest and youngest students. Estimated allocation at this point in time for next year. You'll notice here again, top of the page, Fund 38, that's our non-referendum debt. We will have a little bit of a balance based on the interest income that we've received, working with the DPI, Department of Public Instruction, how to transfer that into our general fund because that's within the revenue limit. Not sure if that's going to happen here at this fiscal year end as of June 30th, or if we have to close the fiscal year and then it would be done next year. But either way, that's $22,000 that I'm estimating that we'll be able to recapture to help balance next year's budget. You'll note that we have referendum debt fund. There's a fund balance that's there. We've not levied any dollars this year, nothing for next year. And then the remaining $4.3 million will take us through next year's payment, as well as a very small one in 2025-26. Still earning interest throughout. May have just a little bit too much, which we'll address that when we cross that bridge. Fund 41, which is our capital expansion fund. This is the $1.8 million growing by 4% per previous board direction that we've been adhering to. Aligning with that, we have utilized the fund balance. There may be some underspending in the current year, which then dollars would be available next year. But right now, I'm estimating that we're going to utilize the full fund balance there. All of the projects that were brought forward in January by Mr. Harder for this next fiscal year. We do have our Fund 46, which is another trust. Again, they're treated differently in how they're funded through the state. But earning interest, no activity at this time. Even in the current year, I originally estimated that we might need a little bit of money if we fully utilized the above fund, which I don't expect at this time. So revised budget would be amend that. But again, just activity next year is interest income. And as well, don't forget about our sale of our Barton Elementary that we had several years ago, 5 years ago now, where there's a suggestion by the board of putting the interest in there of what that $540,000 is earning. So that is fairly sizable, $20,000, $30,000 each of the last current year as well as next year estimate. Fund 50, which is our nutrition, all the meals that we provide staff and students, showing a little bit of a deficit, again, for programmatic improvements at this point in time. I think we're conservative on that, but we'll make sure that we're monitoring that closely. I was sharing before the board meeting, if it's okay, that Mr. Dembski has increased our participation each of the last couple of years, which is great. More students are eating. I think families are used to it, but we'll make sure that we update that accordingly as the year finalizes for the current year as well as next year's projections. Fund 73, which is our OPEB trust. I do have a note here between this fiscal year that we're in as well as next fiscal year, just making sure that this is an area where we have been able to put extra dollars in recent years. The amount for next year at this point in time is to be determined. It's really dependent on how we finish the current fiscal year in making sure that we're in a position where we can be able to utilize those dollars responsibly. So between this year's transfer as well as next year's transfer, we need to just monitor that for activity. But still a reasonable fund balance that exists for the purpose of that outstanding liability. Last couple of funds are community services funds. This is everything outside of the typical school day. I have expanded this just a little bit, and this is something that's approved at the annual meeting by our voting members of our communities, where we disclose all the programs and the costs related to this, but I have included a little bit of mental health, some community engagement in that, that's reflected in a little bit of an increase at this point in time. So I'll share a little bit of information about that in the near future. As well, we're wrapping up on the bottom part of this page, our cooperative sports programs, both hockey as well as lacrosse. Reconciling those, lacrosse is still ongoing at this point in time, but that will be reconciled at fiscal year end for the current year and then next year's estimate that's included. So I apologize, I jumped the gun just a little bit at the end of my previous presentation, but I just wanted to share this, a little bit high level type stuff. But even if it's not tonight, in the next 2 weeks, if you have any feedback, if there's any additional questions or dialogue, by all means, please feel free to reach out to me.
Thank you. Questions?
Yeah.
June?
All right, I just have a question related to Fund 10, revenue for the proposed budget indicates federal sources are about 3 million, so much less than this year.
Correct.
From the 5.7 to the 2.9. Is that just ESSER dollars, or is that some other thing that we have to account for?
Oops. There is, do not reboot. There is one chunk of money related to our Medicaid. That's federal dollars that's in that line item, but the large majority of that, though, is related to the ESSER. So that's why there was a larger dollar amount that we're utilizing this year, less next year. Thank you.
I had a question. I'm looking at the 2022-2023 budget and comparing it to the proposed one for next year. Mm-hmm. And it looks like the revenue is pretty close to the same for those two budgets cycles, but the expenses are around 6.8 million, 6.7 million different. Where is the biggest chunk of that expense coming from? In 2 years, we've increased an expense somewhere along the lines of $6.5 million. Where is most of that coming from?
Yeah, the revenue source
Nope, expenditures.
on the expenditure side. As I take a look, salaries and benefits are the two large areas, and they make up the majority of our budget. We're looking at 70+% of our budget is related to staffing.
Yeah, but those aren't significantly different. In fact, benefits is actually a lower number.
How about purchase services? I noted that too.
That's
Was that what
where
you
I
were
was
looking
looking
at?
to. Yeah, purchase services
Yeah.
looks like it went up by almost $3 million. What kind of services are we purchasing?
Yeah, so
then?
that's related to little, smaller things like utilities as a purchase service. Anytime we're buying somebody else's expertise, utilities, busing, things like that. But additionally in here is also open enrollment as well as vouchers
Your custodial outsourcing is.
and our custodial outsourcing. Thank you. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Can you explain the vouchers part of that?
Yeah, so the vouchers is considered flow-through. So we have the ability, it's a separate line item, it's one of the exemptions in the revenue limit. So we're told on October 15th again, how much our final voucher amount is, where we have our residents being educated by private schools who participate in that program. So there's income qualifications for families to be able to receive a voucher. We have the ability to levy for those dollars, and we pay that same exact amount. So it's in and out. We never receive the money. It's paid directly from the state to the participating schools, but that's seen as an expenditure because it's a revenue with an offsetting expenditure on our books.
Do we see the revenue side of that as well somewhere?
That would be under the state sources, which is why we see the increase from 36.6 to 39.7.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. It's a great question.
Other questions? All right. Anything additional to present?
I don't. Thank you
Right.
for asking.
Thank you. And we'll see this as an action item coming then.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, that was our last discussion topic. We move to the action items on our agenda, and the first is Act 20, Early Literacy Law and Primary Resource for English Language Arts in grades K through 4. This was a topic that was presented to us last time, Superintendent Wimmer. I'll turn it over to you to see if there's anything additional.
Sure. In the absence of Dr. Trueblood, happy to share additional information. So this was heavily vetted. You met our literacy specialist, and our curriculum committee has certainly championed this work and brought it forward, ready for review and action by the full board. At our last meeting and discussion and presentation, there was an ask about some of the data. We visited 2 schools who had just taken on that adoption, kind of a couple steps ahead of our path, Grafton and New Berlin. You can see we've added some quotes in their analysis of their data, what they were seeing as increases in student performance. Really looking at some highlights of not just kind of grade level. Remember, they're dealing with just a winter to winter data point for those who are just stepping into it this year. So they're building their portfolio of data and outcomes as well, but also impressed with the ability not just to raise kind of general performance of students, but students who are already coming to advanced, they're continuing to maintain that advanced status and continue to grow as well. So it was that data piece that was added. Also, we had some chuckles around shipping in those pieces because of the high cost of shipping. So just to reiterate, tonight your action is just on selecting the resource. The contract negotiations come separately and would come before the board. We would enter into those. Andy and I work on those on behalf of the district, and we should have some joint purchasing power. Remember, Act 10 kind of gave us a short list of resources that we could select from. So with everyone in the state kind of faced with that narrow list, there should be some purchasing power to enter into some negotiations. The other piece that comes next too is building the actual curriculum. This is just looking at the resource. So explaining that in their shipping, the way they had it presented, again, still negotiable. They're saying it's shipping for the entire term of the contract. So if you enter into 3 years, all those consumables come to you annually. So it wasn't just kind of shipping that one time. So looking at those pieces. But again, Once we have an approved resource, we would enter into negotiations of that contract. The contract would come before the full board, and the curriculum work associated with the selected resource would go back to the curriculum committee. And if there's any additional questions regarding that as a resource, I see Heather Isaacson here as well tonight.
Great. Thank you for following up on those items. Board members, any questions? All right. Well, hearing none, I would move to approve the primary resource for English language arts in grades K through 4 as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Melanie. We have a motion and second to approve this primary resource for English language arts in grades K through 4 as presented. Any final discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Thanks to the administration and staff and the curriculum committee for heavy lifting on that. That was a lot to consider, and we appreciate it very much. Next, we move to action regarding recommendations for book club selection and notification regarding graphic violence. And Superintendent Wimmer, may kick off that topic.
Same, happy to fill in for Dr. Trueblood. This was a discussion on our last item. There was no follow-up questions or discussion by the board prior. So we're trying to chunk kind of each piece of a very complex puzzle, especially this is one we ran into and had to have some secondary review and approval. We were running into some things around graphic violence specifically. So using all the information that the committee had been working through, whether it was staff surveys, parent surveys, kind of what they were facing in vetting these resources, they made some recommendations for change. That was kind of on that one pager, lining up that bar was at 0 and just setting up some wiggled parameters to shift developmentally for students. So that's before you. Tonight, again, you will see each piece of that puzzle come forward separately. So we'll talk about each components, and then we'll recombobulate, if you will, into policy, language, and practice. But we're seeking approval each step of the way. So before you is simply the graphic violence based on the conversation that we had at our last meeting.
Ultimately, Superintendent Wimmer, when we move through these pieces, obviously, whatever we move through, however we shape this, this is going to be used for selecting these materials going forward. Let's talk about timing, because we've got another year coming up. We wouldn't want to take 9 months in order to do this. It could affect it. I just want to be sure from a timing perspective, what's our goal?
That certainly was one of the pieces where, we were a little late to the conversation, and it was a really big lift on behalf of teachers. So we're looking at over the next course of the next month and a half to get each piece of that puzzle so we can repackage it, get the updated policy, language, practice, et cetera, in advance so that we could capture some summer work time and then be ready to hit the ground running in fall.
That's helpful. So we should see kind of a steady stream of this as we work through it.
Correct. We'll certainly be working through sexual content as well as the language piece in the next future meetings.
Great, thank you. And last time this was up for discussion, and I think we had robust discussion on this item. Let's open it up again. Board members, questions, comments, or thoughts? All right. Like I said, we had good discussion last time. Then why don't we move this forward so that the board considers this. I will move to approve the recommendations for book club selection and notification, graphic violence as presented. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Chad. Motion and second to approve the recommendations for book club selection and notification, graphic violence as presented. Any final discussion? Thank you. Hearing none, I will call the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. That motion carries. All right. Again, we appreciate the work of the curriculum committee, and we look forward to the next batch. Moving then on to 2024-2025 meal prices. And Superintendent Wimmer, I'm not sure if there's additional information to present here.
There were no additional pieces of information at that time.
Okay. Any questions from the board regarding the meal prices presentation? Mr. Jenkins.
Is Andy still here?
I think he is. Mr. Sarno, would you come to the podium, please?
See, now I'm sitting here. I can't stare at you from across the room.
I'll pick a different spot. The good news is I forgot my water, so.
That's good. Well, I called on you before the meeting. We were talking a
Yes.
little bit, so if you could just expand in the public forum here. I mean, my concern is, while of course I don't want to increase prices, and I agree with a gradual increase, my question was, is this enough? And you were kind of explaining that a little bit in detail to me. Could you do that again for us?
Yeah, so the USDA offers a standard. It's a uniform standard, and I think we talked about that a little bit. We're making progress towards it. I think it's 2 cents. So we're still well under it by just about $1 per meal at the lunch, on the lunch side. We've reviewed comparables both regionally, as well as Tom has a consortium that he belongs to. So where we are seeing some increases related to staffing costs, even consumer price index, buying food and things like that, there are some large increases. That being said, we have increased our participation. We've done a good job in marketing our program and building it. And so at this point in time, until I see some final year-end data, we are showing that deficit where we are making the improvements to the program. But comparably speaking, the meals, if we increased it much more than we are, we're going to be not comparable to our area. So that's the difficulty. I agree with you there. It's a fine line between not wanting to, but balancing out what families are willing to pay. And you start getting over some certain dollar amounts and seeing some large increases from one year to the next. It's a difficult spot, but we have some fund balance if we use it strategically. We're still coming off of the federal with those dollars that are set aside for that. I think at this point in time, the recommendation stands.
Yep, and that's fine. Like I said, my only question was, just looking back at the couple of years' prices, inflation has obviously grown a lot more than the 20-cent increase that's, here in the last couple of years. So as long as we're keeping up with that while still providing quality, service and food to our kids, then I'm happy. So,
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
That was a good question.
was a great question.
Earlier, when you talked through the budget and Fund 50, I think it is nutrition services, is that the fund that's implicated here?
Yep.
I shouldn't say implicated. That sounds so negative, and I didn't mean it that way. Is that the fund that's involved here?
Yes, yes.
And my recollection is there's fund balance in there projected under this budget to still have fund balance in there, and I think that's Mr. Jenkins' point. The difference is that money, if we decided, you know what, we got too much money in there, let's just spend that on
Textbooks.
textbooks, let's say, for instance, which is a worthy cause, not possible, right?
Correct.
It
Yep.
has to be spent in some way for this. So I think the idea is we're withdrawing a little bit of money from that fund balance to kind of keep the prices low, and it has to be spent on something related to meals.
Correct. Yep.
So,
And depending on that participation, we may continue that trend of growing the program, and we may not even utilize the fund balance in the same manner that we're projecting at this point in time. So, yeah. Yep.
that makes sense. All right. Other questions? Well, let's see. Hearing none, then I'll move this for board consideration by moving to approve the 2024-2025 meal prices as presented. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We'll give that one to, how about Mr. Jenkins?
Okay.
All right. Motion to approve the 2024-2025 meal prices as presented. Any final discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. That motion carries. Appreciate your help. Superintendent Wimmer, we have, I think it's 2 policies for second reading tonight.
Second reading and potential action. So our policy on policies allows you with unanimous consent from the board to act on the policies. So last time there were no questions. They're largely, 187 was shifting that president's script to an administrative rule and cleaning up some cross-references on policies. The second one was attending to recommendations made by our auditors to reference both federal and state funding within that policy language. So we had discussed potentially putting these for action. So if you'd like to move each one separately so we can check for unanimous on those votes, that would be fine. We would entertain that motion.
All right. Well, how about this? Let's start with policy 187. I'll just start with, are there any objections to considering it tonight? Not seeing any. So I would move to approve policy 187 as recommended. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, June. Motion and second to approve revised policy 187. Any final discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. That motion carries. I'll similarly ask if there's any objection to considering policy 660, since we need unanimous consent. I'm not seeing any. So I would move to approve revised policy 660 as recommended. Is there a second? Thank you, Chad. Motion and second to approve revised policy 660. Any final discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. That motion carries. All right. We've moved through this agenda fairly efficiently, I'd say, tonight. We have our board meeting calendar next to discuss, so let me just walk through that. First, I understand the curriculum committee meeting that was scheduled for May 21, 2024 has been canceled, and I assume is going to be revised. I see a new one is on the books here for June 18th, 2024, 4:30 p.m. at the Education Service Center. Policy committee would meet next on June 11th, 2024, at 4 p.m. at the Education Service Center. And our next two board meetings would take place on June 3 and June 17, both at 5:30 p.m., both at the Education Service Center. I just remind the public to watch for the official postings of these meetings, as they are subject to change. Anything else to add to the board meeting calendar? All right, other items for follow-up and communication. All right, hearing none, we have an item that's appropriately discussed in executive session. So I'd make a motion to adjourn into executive session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.851C to consider employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, and take any such action if necessary based on its discussion, namely compensation. Do we have a second? Thank you, Kelly. We have a motion and second to adjourn into executive session. Any final discussion? Hearing none, this requires a roll call vote. So I will call the roll. Mr. Donaldson? Yes. Mr. Jenkins? Yes. Ms. Kruger? Yes. Ms. Lang? Yes. Dr. Temez? Yes. Mr. Swigert votes yes. And Ms. Ergod? Yes. Thank you. That is a unanimous motion. Oh, absolutely. No problem. I will submit that right to you there. This was a unanimous vote to move into executive session. So we are adjourned into executive session. Thank you to those who attended and viewed.